if Tennessee loses to Texas A&M, is it time to give a young man named Nico a strong look?
You really want to throw Nico out there the first time against Alabama on the road a week later?
Yep. Just like Casey Clausen. No question.
Wait a minute.
Casey Clausen made his first start against Alabama. If things don't go well, listen, here's the bottom line, and you tell me if I'm wrong. If you can't beat Texas A&M at home with Joe Milton, then you cannot beat Alabama on the road with Joe Milton. So you're not going to win there, so make the change. There's no question I would make that change, or at least get Nico in there for a couple of significant series, because at that point with 2 SEC losses, you're probably not making it to Atlanta any shape, form, or fashion. No, there's no question you're thinking Nico if you lose this game against A&M. No question.
Tennessee, that Alabama team that Casey Clausen got his first start in, went 3-8. Mike DeBose got fired. They literally propelled Central Florida to a Division I program by losing to them that year. That is the worst team in Alabama history, and Tennessee was playing them at home.
But Caleb, it could be the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't care who it is next week. If you have to cover up your deficiencies at quarterback, then it's time to find a new quarterback, and that's what Tennessee is doing right now. Now, all that being said, Joe Milton could go out and ball out 28 of 32 passes for 325 yards, and everything's great. But you got to take a look at Nico if things don't work out this weekend for Joe Milton. You're thinking, too, about the long-term play. So maybe it's not a complete quarterback switch. Maybe it's just Nico comes in for a couple of series in the first half, and you do that sort of thing. Could you affect team chemistry? Probably, but I don't care. If Nico comes out and is the better player and he wins, these guys want to win more than they want to be Joe Milton's friend. So they're going to get one over really quick if Nico goes out there and is in his 2 drives is 7 of 8 for 182 yards. And I'm sorry if that hurts Joe Milton's feelings. He's a great guy. We've all said that. But if it doesn't happen this weekend, it's time to take a hard look at Nico in games.
Okay, let's unpack this a little bit, because I'm still on the train that if you put Nico in before he's ready, you could. I don't know about him mentally, but I still think physically you could wreck him. I think you could. Again, I think you could break him in half. And there is still the mental part too. Look, I think I've said this for a long time. I think a big part of Jared Garantano's whole career at Tennessee is he was sabotaged by Butch Jones. In 2017, when Butch Jones was desperately trying to save his job, he scapegoated Quentin Dormady, and he brought in Jared Garantano as the starter before Garantano was ready. And Garantano's first start was against South Carolina, and it was Will Muschamp's best team. And whatever else you want to think about Will Muschamp, he's a great defensive coach. And set Garantano up to fail by playing South Carolina and then Alabama in back-to-back weeks. I don't think Garantano ever recovered mentally from those first 2 starts. And that was also Butch Jones could try a desperate move to save his job. I don't know if Nico, I mean, again, you're right. Nico could be a lot mentally tougher, but it's not necessarily the mental toughness part, because again, Peyton Manning got his first start. I talked about this against Washington State in 1994.
Peyton Manning was skinnier too than Nico. That's what Peyton I don't.
Manning.
Yeah, I do appreciate where you're coming from. Linemen. Yeah, but again, the getting hurt thing, Joe Milton could get hurt. He doesn't look like a natural runner. Between the two, the fluidity I've seen from Nico on high school tape and the way Joe Milton kind of runs like a tank, between the two, all things being equal, I think Joe Milton's more likely to get hurt in a game. I think that Nico has a better awareness of the game, like Hendon Hooker. Remember him? He took 4 or 5 hard hits all year last year. For the most part, he knew how to avoid hits, and he was a very adept runner. So we probably got 2 topics out of that: is Joe Milton a disappointment? And then if Joe doesn't happen against Texas A&M, should the Vols go Nico? I say absolutely yes. Your thoughts? David Michaels says, yep. Travis says Clausen, Alabama wasn't as good. True. David said Milton isn't consistent with throwing, and he's soft like Thornton when it comes to the run, but Nico in. And then I get ripped with Travis. Just like Danielson, lust for Bama, Dave hates Joe. I do not hate Joe. Am I past that point?
Yes, you don't hate Joe. You were defending Joe after the Virginia game. You defend Joe after the South Carolina game, and I don't. So that's the funny part. And also, Gary Danielson doesn't lust for Alabama either. So y'all need to put that in the back of your head. It doesn't happen.
Joe Milton stats that you won't believe right now of all Twitter. So listen in and let me give you a breakdown. Now, this is according to Pro Football Focus that you really like, right?
I think Pro Football Focus has major flaws. It's one thing I take into account among a lot.
Here's some stats. Let me throw those at you. And do you think they're going to be good or okay, or do you think these are going to be really bad?
I think these stats are going. I think where you're coming with you're not going to believe it. Leads me to believe these stats will be highly misleading. But let's see. Let's see what we got.
Okay, so here we go. Now this is from Eric Kane of VolQuest, who I believe got it through Pro Football Focus. So we're getting it through Josh Ward. So there you go. Kane said Milton is 8 of 30 on passes 20 yards down the field. Can you do the percentage of 8 of 30 for me real quick? What percentage is that?
That is, let's see, 415. We're talking under 25%. Yeah, it's the lowest in FBS. I know that.
Okay. And then he's 11 of 27 on passes 10 of 19 yards. So that's about 30%. So you're looking at a quarterback that outside of 9 yards is roughly 35%. Joe Milton is 35 of 44 on passes 0 to 9 yards. So in other words, you can throw the bubble screen all day and help your passing statistics as far as your completion percentage, but that ball goes further down the field to 9 yards. You've only got a 35 to 40% chance of completing it. That's not good. That's troublesome.
Yeah, they brought up that stat in the South Carolina game. And by the way, I was wrong. PFF, that stat is not misleading. That's a true stat. I thought you were going to bring up Joe Milton's just overall averages, yards per attempt, adjusted yards, and things like that. And I would have considered that misleading. No, this is bad. And Joe Milton was dead last among starting quarterbacks in FBS 2 weeks ago on passes beyond the line of scrimmage. So it's not good. And it's not all his fault. But yeah.
You look at the numbers real quick. Joe Milton is 10th in overall passing rating. That's not good. And then if you want to break it down by completion percentage, which is what this stat that we just got into is referring to, he's 9th at 63%. But again, down the field, further than 9 yards, you're talking about a 35 to 40% chance of completing a football. That's why you're seeing all the short bubble screens. It's never been more evident. That is it. That stat, I mean, I've said it. I've seen it with my own eyeballs. I just haven't sat down and done the stats. Good job, Pro Football Focus. Good job for Eric Kane for finding that. It's simple to me. I mean, that's it. They're afraid to throw the ball downfield with Joe Milton. Fact. So nothing's going to change significantly until they're not afraid. But can he do anything at this point? Can he have such a great Thursday practice, Caleb, that they say, let's throw this ball all over the park? Why, no.
I mean, I think they're hoping for that because, again, South Carolina, listen to me, Texas A&M does not have a good secondary. And they have an amazing run defense. Tennessee's not going to be able to run the ball on A&M the way they've been running the ball. That I can tell you right now, that's not going to happen. So they need Joe Milton to step up. I don't think they think he can. And that's why they did all those screens against South Carolina 2 weeks ago. Your best hope is they dialed up a few designed calls, like maybe 3 that they hope work in the game. And that's the best.
Dan says he throws more than 9 yards when he throws across the field. And we had somebody challenge you on a YouTube channel that said, I bet Caleb couldn't stand on one side of the field and one hop it to the other side of the field. So the 50 to the 50. And I'm like, well, of course he couldn't. I mean, that is incredible. That's a 50. That's a 40-yard throw and a good bounce.
That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. There, I said it. The thing that
could you do it though? Could you do it?
Probably not. As a matter of fact, I played baseball, and my biggest weakness playing baseball was I had a bad arm. So, I mean, I had a terrible arm. And so they tried to hide me in the field. And, in middle school, they put you in right field. In high school, they tried to put you at second base or just anywhere where you just don't have a good arm. So, yeah, I have a terrible arm. Guess what? I'm not starting at quarterback for Tennessee. This drives me crazy. I'm analyzing what Joe Milton can do because Joe Milton's playing quarterback for Tennessee. So you don't get to compare me to Joe Milton. This is like when people judge mistakes politicians make, and they're like, well, could you do any better? Well, I'm not running for anything. I'm not making decisions for the country.